I was watching England play last night, and there was a point where Harry Maguire had a misplaced pass. England tried to work it down the left. It went to Raheem Sterling. He surrendered possession. Italy had a counter-attack. And I looked at it and I thought, what is it with these managers? What is it with these managers who almost not just select their favourites, but almost revert back to their pre-programmed way of doing things to the detriment of their own career. Now, let me get this absolutely right. I'm going to be talking about not just Gareth Southgate here. I'm going to be talking about David Moyes. We might even touch on a little bit of Sam Allardyce, maybe even some other England managers as well. I just find the whole thing weird. Now, but as I was about to say, let's get this right. I don't think Gareth Southgate is getting sacked before the World Cup. That's just not going to happen at all. The FA have no history of suggesting that they'll do such a thing. They move very, very slowly. And also, I don't believe that the England manager's job is an attractive one. In fact, I'll go as far as to say as most of the international jobs are things that maybe good managers want to do at the end of their career. If you're at your peak, if you're in your pomp, you want to see out your club career. You hear Guardiola saying it, maybe one day I'll manage Spain. Klopp says it, maybe one day I'll manage Germany. And there's loads, Mourinho, loads and loads of them who do that. That was never the case. Being your national manager used to be the pinnacle. So Gareth Southgate at the moment has got the best job Gareth Southgate is ever going to get. However, he doesn't have a ton of credit in the bank. The big credit's there. The European Championships, the World Cup. Last time England got to the final of the Nations League. This time we're being relegated out of the group. I don't think there's massive shame in that, by the way. I think what they've tried to do is manipulate a bunch of pre-season friendlies, a bunch of international friendlies, pre-tournament friendlies, sort of mix them and mould them into a tournament. And I think it works. I think it's okay, but I don't think it's the end of the world. I don't believe that managers' jobs hang in the balance if they don't do well in the Nations League. Let's put it that way. However, what I do think it does is when you lose as badly as England did to Hungary, and when you do as badly as we are in the group, and when you look like you're being tactically outdone by, I don't want to be demeaning to Italy. Let's be fair, they beat us in the final last time, but they haven't qualified for the World Cup, of course. But they're a very, very good team. That being said, England have a bunch of good players, and Mancini won that. Mancini out-tacticked Gareth Southgate. But when that's happening, I do wonder at which point job preservation kicks in. At which point do you think, okay, I get it, I understand the loyalty, I'm going to be loyal to Maguire, I'm going to be loyal to Raheem Sterling, they've done things for me in the past, but at the moment it's not working. And there's only one person's head on the chopping block, ultimately, and I do think it'd come after the World Cup, and that would be Gareth Southgate's. And I don't know how much comfort you would take from that, from looking at it and thinking, well, you know what, at least I was loyal. I might have lost my job, but you know what, I can phone up Harry and say, hello Harry, how you doing, and be friendly with Raheem and know that I have been true to myself. I don't know their way of thinking. I just think it's odd, because why would you select Harry Maguire when, and I don't think Harry Maguire is totally culpable for that England loss against Italy. And I do want to move on to David Moyes in just a second, but he's not been playing. And even when he was playing last season, he's been pretty crap form. I don't know what it is when you could clearly see in that game that Raheem Sterling has been living off the fumes of his last major tournament, by the way. Actually, for England, in the last year, has been pretty crap. And at what point do you look at it and think, actually, he keeps on surrendering possession. I'm going to remove him from the field of play and I'm going to put somebody else. And he's so slow to do anything that might upset his core group of favoured players, Southgate. Which sort of brings us on to West Ham managers. And well, we'll get to David Moyes in just a moment. Let's just go back, if we may, to let's go back to Sam Allardyce. You'll know this story, and the story is that West Ham were in the top four at around Christmas time. We had purchased a player called Enner Valencia, who you'll remember, but also we'd signed Sakho. Now, Diafra Sakho was signed by the owner. I think David Sullivan signed Diafra Sakho. Whatever, it doesn't matter. It was working. We were sort of playing with a front two, which is not something Allardyce liked to do, but Kevin Nolan, he's captain, and somebody who would play very, very centrally behind the striker, was injured, as was Andy Carroll. We'd also signed Stuart Downing. Stuart Downing by this point had become a bit of a journeyman. He was a left winger, had been a left winger, a really good left winger at Aston Villa, had played well for England on the left wing. And do you know what Allardyce did? Allardyce thought, I've got a bit of a problem in central midfield, attacking midfield. I'm going to turn Stuart Downing into an attacking midfielder and put him behind the two strikers. My word, he stumbled across a successful formula. Sorry, I should probably say that. So much so that Downing got back into the England team. Everything was going right. What could possibly go wrong? West Ham were in the top 4. What could possibly go wrong at this point? Well, that character trait I just described, which is going back and reverting back and going for your favourites, and basically a form of managerial suicide. Before I go on and give any more details about that, please do click the link below, which is for the channel sponsor, who are Spitch. Spitch is a fantasy football app where you can win money. You can win money by pledging no money, or you can win even more money by pledging money. It's a betting app, so for that reason it's 18 and above. But if you just want to play the free-to-play games, you can do so well at the moment on the Nations League. You can bet on that. There's Conference League stuff, there's German football, which is called Bundesliga, funnily enough, or you can just wait for the Premier League to resume and you can join myself and Gio on our little Hammers Chat Fantasy Football Mini League, which hopefully we'll pop that up there. When you download the Spitch app, there's a little communities tab with a search bar on it. If you tap Hammers Chat into that, it will invite you and ask you to click on a link to join the Hammers Chat Mini League. Myself and Gio are in it, about 300 other Hammers Chatterers and participants. Come over, check it out, give it a go. As I say, it's all free, but actually there is a free-to-play game in the Premier League, so it starts fresh each match week. So it doesn't matter if you missed all the previous match weeks. Don't worry about it. It will start fresh from this one. Pick your team, pick all the superstars you want, and there is a prize pot, usually of about 500 quid for the free-to-play game. Actually, all prizes encompassed for the Spitch app is up to £70,000 worth of cash prizes each and every game week. Check it out. Please use the link below. They'll know you come from Hammers Chat. So anyway, back to Sam Allardyce, right? So Sam Allardyce, you think everything's going well. What could possibly go wrong? Well, Allardyce does this ridiculous thing. He utters the words, we have to find a way, when they're fit, to get Kevin Nolan and Andy Carroll back in the team. Well, why? Why? Everything's going fine. Why? Because they're your favourites. They're your favourites. Do you know what? Allardyce did it. The rest is sort of history. We went on a run. We went from top 4, basically had relegation form for the remainder of the season. I think I've only seen, if I remember rightly, I've only seen 2 seasons where we've had worse form than the last, whatever it may be, 20 games of that season. Anyway, and it started to sow the seeds of his demise. He basically lost his job. And now we get to David Moyes. And I sometimes look at David Moyes, particularly in recent times, think, when are you going to change it? Why? When are you going to appreciate what you're doing is probably not working for you? At which point are you going to ditch some of your favourites? And I look at him and I think, change things up in midfield. Do something a little bit different. When are you going to go and play your 2 strikers? That sort of thing that Sam Allardyce was forced to do. Because that takes something brave, doesn't it, to do that, to actually revert from a defensive formation to an attacking one. And I understand that, but I just look at it and think, well, do you know what? It's almost like you're heading towards a brick wall in a car and you're just going to carry on pressing the accelerator. Actually do something. Brake, swerve around the brick wall, do something else. But it just keeps on going. Play the 2 strikers. You had a little glimpse in the Italy game when I thought particularly in the first half, Scamacca was deployed in a way. Mancini deployed him better than David Moyes deployed him. He had Raspadori. For some reason, it just sounds like it should be said, Raspadori. He had Raspadori next to him, who was his partner at Sassuolo. I don't mean they weren't married or anything. It was his strike partner at Sassuolo. And, anyway, so I thought that was really working really well. I think it showed the value of having another striker next to him. I wonder if David Moyes looks at that and thinks, actually, I might have a little bit of that. Look, I don't think he was outstanding, don't get me wrong. But the whole lot was good. And what was so impressive was the way I felt in that game. Just go back to that game. Italy's pressing game was really good. Really good in that one. I just think, when will you do that? Because at the moment, your stubbornness, like with Southgate, like with Allardyce, is leading you in the wrong direction. And I'll just go back to Souček. I don't want to heap a ton of stick on Souček, because I do think Souček's a good player, but actually at the moment, what we need is someone who can pass and move the ball. But fundamentally, I think in central midfield, we need a fast runner who's got really, really good technique. That's not him. It's not him. But yet, he's almost the undroppable one in the team. Discount Declan Rice. I think Declan's level of performances for West Ham is fine. You know, you could argue in many respects they're one world-class player. We hope Paqueta will also be that, but in many respects it's Declan Rice. And I just think, just do something. Because what you're doing is, by being inactive and doing nothing, what you're pinning your hopes on saying, actually, at some point, Thomas will come good. At some point, he's going to start scoring. I know he scored a goal this season, but he'll start scoring goals at the rate that he did when he first arrived. But surely that's sort of, I'm not saying it's a forlorn hope, but surely that hope is exactly that, right? It's not particularly proactive. It's not going out there and seizing the moment, which you probably should do. And it's a funny thought. It just popped into my mind when watching Gareth Southgate stood there, inactive, doing nothing, relying on his favourites. I don't know if the guy at Ten Hag at Man U will do good things or not yet. I don't know, but he seems to be getting a bit of a tune at the players like Sancho, to a lesser extent Rashford maybe, who have not been doing particularly well under the previous managers there. But yet still the old favourites are in. I think there's some good, upcoming, young English centre-halves doing really well at the moment. But they're not going to get a look in, because Maguire, regardless of what he does or what he doesn't do, is shoehorned into the team. And you looked at the composition, and if I just may go back to England, the composition of that back three. And when you're being pressed as impressively as Italy did, you need people that are really comfortable on the ball. Ironically, I think Harry Maguire is relatively comfortable on the ball. But somebody needs to come out, and somebody needs to, particularly the central player, and you need the centre halves when you're being pressed that much to be either really good with the technique, if what you want to do is play the passing game, and that's what Gareth Southgate wants to do, or just hoof it up the field. And I just looked at it and I thought, this is really not the way to do it. This is not the personnel. Too often, the technique of those players, when put under scrutiny and put under the high press, means they surrender the ball. I just thought, Southgate, he's still, despite him being in the job for this length of time, he's still scratching around the formations, and that wasn't it. That didn't work. And you take a player like Saka, who has had a pretty good couple of seasons, and you go and put him at left wing back. I mean, it's weird. The whole thing is quite odd. Anyway, it's not so much about that. I thought, the performance is what the performance was. England are doing badly, but I just found it interesting. At what point does pragmatism overcome your normal way of doing things, your favourites? And I'll give you one final example, and it's Alan Kirbishley. Because Alan Kirbishley, I do feel, went the other way. He actually relinquished his instincts. We discussed it the other day. Kirbishley had Mascherano, Kirbishley had Tevez basically given to him. He didn't want to play him, didn't know what to do with him. And, sorry, my microphone got twisted. And then what happened was Kirbishley came in. When Kirbishley came in, he didn't play Tevez. In fact, I'll remind you of Alan Kirbishley's comments. Alan Kirbishley actually said, everyone keeps singing for Tevez. I don't know why you lot are singing for Tevez. He's not done anything at the club. Why are you singing for him? He's basically saying, where is this adulation come from? He's barely kicked a ball for West Ham. So in those comments, you could tell Kirbishley did not want to play Tevez. However, needs must. And he got to the point where we almost couldn't afford to lose another game. So he threw Tevez in there. Tevez scored the goal, and the rest is history. But I just thought you saw there a manager who, at that point, his own job survival, his own desire to remain in the job, superseded what he thought he should do tactically and his favourites and all the rest of it. And I think that's right, isn't it? Self-preservation, self-survival should trump all that other stuff. And that's an example of it happening. I just looked at Southgate yesterday thinking, mate, you know what? If you keep doing this, you will be heading for the sack. Not now, because I do think and there'll be people that probably point out on this video, aside from Sir Alf Ramsey, he's the most successful manager England have had. And granted, semi-finals, final, absolutely great, really good. However, to make that argument, you have to almost remove the nuance from that game against Italy. Not last night's game, the final, the European Championship, that game against Italy. When realistically, we were outdone. He was outthought again. It's actually that was there for the taking, and I thought England were awful in that game. And that may well be, look, these chances come along very, very seldom. Might not get that chance again. But also, you'd probably suggest the form now going into a World Cup ain't good. And Southgate doesn't look any closer to his preferred formation than he has done for quite some time. What is disturbing is he does look still quite close to his desired personnel, regardless of what the formation is. You just sort of know Carl Walker's in, don't you? You just sort of know that Harry Maguire's in. Raheem Sterling's in. Regardless of what they do, regardless of what anybody else does, you just get the impression they're in. And also, I sort of look at it as well, and I hope this isn't the case, but I get the impression that the moment someone else is fit and firing, like Calvin Phillips or Mason Mount, then I'm not saying Mason Mount's a bad player or Calvin Phillips. I'm not saying that, by the way. But Jude Bellingham, the moment he can drop Jude Bellingham, I sort of think he will, and I can see that coming a little bit. And I don't know. I just think at some point he's gonna have to switch things around, change things up. Otherwise, ultimately, it's going to cost him his job.